Intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Jim Michaely, and for the next hour I'll be reading from the January 24th to January 30th edition of the Buffalo Criterion on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. First story on the front page is titled More Than a Game: How Ron Langhorne is Using Golf to Bring Communities Together. By the time Ron Langhorne was 7 years old, he had already found the thing that would shape his life, not just for himself, but for countless young people who would come after him. Growing up in Buffalo, New York, Ron was surrounded by the grit and pride of a working-class city and the steady influence of his parents, especially his father, a Brooklyn native who taught him the importance of self-discipline and self-respect. Like many kids in his neighborhood, Ron had choices when it came to sports. Basketball and football were everywhere. Golf was not, but golf found Ron anyway. Through an inner-city youth golf program led by Major Hank Williams and supported by the Jim Hart Golf Foundation, Ron was introduced to a sport that immediately spoke to him. While others questioned his interest, and sometimes teased him, Ron saw something others didn't. Golf showed me a world I didn't know I could be a part of, Ron says. It wasn't just a game. It was a chance to change how people saw me, and how I saw myself. At a time when golf carried the stereotype of exclusivity, Ron felt drawn to the challenge of breaking that mold. I wanted kids who looked like me to know they belonged on the course too, he says. Finding purpose through giving back. Like many young people, Ron's journey was not without struggle. There were moments when life felt heavy and direction felt distant. But at 17, a turning point came when he began coaching younger kids. Teaching gave him clarity and purpose. When I started helping them, I realized golf had already given me something priceless, Ron explains. It gave me structure, and it gave me peace. One of the most defining moments of his life came during a birthday celebration for Jim Hart. Ron was dealing with personal challenges and uncertainty. Then, standing before a crowd, he hit a shot that felt effortless and true. For that one moment, Ron recalls, everything else disappeared. I felt like I mattered. I felt like I belonged. That moment stayed with him, not because of the shot itself, but because of what it represented: hope. Today, Ron Langhorne is more than a golfer. He is a mentor, a community builder, and the founder of the Ron Langhorne Golf Foundation, an organization dedicated to making golf accessible to youth from all backgrounds. Through free lessons, mentorship, and outreach, Ron uses golf as a vehicle for life lessons that extend far beyond the fairway. Golf teaches honesty because you call your own penalties, Ron says. It teaches integrity, patience, and accountability. Those are skills kids can take anywhere in life. For Ron, the sport is also a gateway to opportunity. He believes golf opens doors to careers, networks, and confidence many young people never realize are within reach. I tell them, this game can put you in rooms you never imagined, he says. But first, you have to believe you deserve to be there. A vision bigger than the course. Ron's goals continue to grow. He plans to expand the foundation's reach, offer competitive training for dedicated players, and introduce modern tools like launch monitors to enhance learning. Still, he remains grounded in his mission. This isn't about creating pro golfers, Ron emphasizes. It's about creating leaders. By bringing together kids from different neighborhoods, backgrounds, and life experiences, Ron sees golf as a powerful bridge between communities. When kids stand on the same tee box, he says, labels disappear. That's where real change begins. A message that lasts. When asked what advice he gives young people, Ron answers without hesitation. Stay humble, stay disciplined, and don't quit on yourself, he says. Your story isn't over just because things get hard. Ron Langhorne's journey is a reminder that impact doesn't always start with money or influence. It starts with passion, persistence, and a willingness to give back. And as he continues his work across Buffalo and beyond, Ron proves one enduring truth. Sometimes the greatest force for change isn't a loud voice or a grand stage, but a steady hand, a shared dream, and a belief that everyone deserves a place on the course. Also from the front page, this is a story titled Former Buffalonian Turns 107 Years Old. It's by Frank Gist. My best friend in third grade was a boy named Darrell Spearman, who had a twin sister, Cheryl. They lived in a stately home on Humboldt Parkway. There were times I would sleep over at the Spearman home that was always immaculate compared to mine. Mrs. Spearman was the perfect homemaker who cooked breakfast, lunch, and dinner. For some strange reason, I always remember she would make us toasted peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with cold milk before bedtime. The Spearman household was just different than mine, and when I told my mother about the extra things Mrs. Spearman would do, she would get upset and tell me to go live with them. As the years passed, Darrell and my life moved on, but I always remembered my time with the Spearman family. That same Mrs. Spearman just celebrated her 107th birthday. That's right, 107 years old. Former Buffalonian Mrs. Anna Lee Spearman, née Jenkins, joined a very exclusive club this month when she celebrated her 107th birthday in her hometown of Little Rock, Arkansas. Born January 30th, 1919, she moved from Little Rock to Niagara Falls as a young woman in the 1940s for better opportunities that were not available in the Jim Crow South. One Sunday while attending church, she met a young war veteran named Samuel Spearman, and the two were married in the summer of 1947. The Spearmans made their home on Humboldt Parkway in Buffalo, where they raised their twin children, Darrell and Cheryl Spearman Tyson, both of whom reside in Little Rock, Arkansas today. In 1987, after her lifelong love Samuel passed away, and Anna Lee soon returned to her hometown, Little Rock, where she has lived happily and comfortably for the past 38 years, surrounded with family and friends. She is still very active and independent while living her best life, according to all who know and love her. Buffalo is still proud to call her our own and wish her a very happy 100th birthday. On page 2 of the newspaper, in the Towards a Better Life column by Eva M. Doyle, here's a column titled, Report Citing Research About the Benefits of Cursive Writing. I have written about the benefits of teaching cursive writing in this column before. I was surprised to see a report on the Today Show on Tuesday morning, January 20th, citing more research about the benefits of children learning how to write in cursive. The new research is science-based. I thought I would repeat some of my own findings from the past. According to the show, more schools across the country are including it in their instructional programs. I have learned as a historian that if you wait long enough, things will always come back, especially those things that have shown positive results over the long run. There has been a lot of controversy over cursive writing in the classroom. However, many teachers are now finding that it is good for students to learn how to write in cursive. I have always been an advocate of teaching cursive writing for many years. I always taught it to my students every year that I was in the public schools. Many states now require students to include it in their curriculum. A number of suburban schools now require that students learn how to write in cursive. Although it is controversial, there are many benefits for teaching cursive. As a teacher, I found that it helped my students to concentrate and to take pride in learning something new. It reinforced unity in the classroom because everyone was working together. Directed cursive writing requires all students to focus at the same time. Cursive writing instruction also increased parental involvement in helping the students to practice writing. I would encourage teachers and parents to look up the article on ABC. I pointed out in my own article that even with technology, students need to use cursive writing. The surprising thing that I learned from the Today Show is that there is a movement for students to learn it in order to read historical documents of the Revolutionary War in preparation for the 250th year anniversary of the United States this year. However, this is not my main reason for advocating learning cursive. Some of my main reasons are expressed below. I took my references from these sources. Concordia University, located in Portland, Oregon, on its website, lists 5 main reasons for teaching cursive writing. These reasons included the following. 1. Cursive writing develops motor skills. It involves using the hand muscles in a different way from printing. It activates a different part of the brain than regular writing does. At the age of 7 or 8, these skills can be very beneficial in developing motor skill development. 2. It reinforces learning. By having to learn cursive, students get another opportunity to fully comprehend the alphabet. It gives students a clearer understanding of how letters are formed, which will improve print writing as well. 3. Working with legal documents. Being comfortable with cursive writing will guarantee students will be confident when writing and signing legal documents. A cursive signature is most commonly required to endorse legal documentation, accompanied by a printed version of their name too. Writing and signing checks is another reason for learning cursive. 4. Cursive writing helps students with learning disabilities, especially dyslexia. Students can have a hard time writing in print because the letters look similar, especially B and D. Cursive letters look very different from print letters. This gives dyslexic students another option, an option that can make them feel more confident in their abilities. 5. Cursive writing is a lost art form. More and more school districts are cutting art from their budgets. This can have detrimental effects on the development of students. Cursive writing can be considered as an art form of its own. This helps to develop the side of the brain that is not developed by basic reading and writing skills. The more diverse a teaching curriculum is, the better. It connects students to the past. Many historical documents are written in cursive. Also, important letters and cards from grandparents and great-grandparents are written in cursive. Many of our seniors still write in cursive. Although we live in a world of technology, it is important to keep a part of our history when it comes to cursive writing. This is another way to help students become excited about learning. Reference: this information was retrieved from education.cu-portland.edu. Community groups roll out policy change agenda for 2026 amid new Buffalo mayoral administration and federal policy threats. Buffalo, New York. On the morning of Friday, January 16, 2026, Partnership for the Public Good, PPG, and community advocates convened to unveil the 2026 PPG Community Agenda at the Alumni and Visitor Center of Buffalo State University. This year's agenda is shaped by two urgent realities: a transition in Buffalo's mayoral administration, creating a critical window for major local policy shifts, and growing threats from federal policy changes. Western New York community groups are calling on local and state leaders to act now to establish protections that safeguard housing, immigration rights, food access, public safety, arts and culture, and community well-being. Our federal government is actively terrorizing everyday people, whether it's by withholding food stamps, cutting funding for homelessness services, or kidnapping our neighbors. The decisions made by our local governments now carry greater weight than ever before. This is where we can focus our efforts. This is where we can make a change, said Sarah Wooten, Interim Director at Partnership for the Public Good. Each fall, Partnership for the Public Good, PPG, leads the democratic process among its more than 390 partners to determine the community agenda for the coming year. The 2026 community agenda includes 11 policy change priorities. 1. Disrupt the school-to-prison pipeline. 2. NY for all. Prohibit collusion of state and local agencies with federal enforcement. 3. Establish a municipal office of urban agriculture and food policy in the city of Buffalo. 4. Communities, not cages. Pass prison and parole reform in New York State. 5. Prioritize community health in the Humboldt Parkway Kensington Expressway, EIS scoping phase, and draft review. 6. Establish a Human Rights Commission for the City of Buffalo. 7. Enact an ordinance in Buffalo prohibiting federal-local collusion in civil immigration enforcement. 8. We want care, not corruption, in New York State. 9. Pass the Youth Justice and Opportunities Act. 10. Create a Department of Arts and Culture within the City of Buffalo. 11. Pass good cause eviction protections and keep housing affordable in Buffalo. The full text of each plank is available at PPG's website, ppgbuffalo.org. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo Criterion on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. This is an article titled Harm Reduction Vending Machines in New York State Expand Access to Overdose Treatment and Drug Test Strips. UB Studies Confirm. It's by Ellen Goldbaum. Subtitled, Two Studies Assess Harm Reduction Vending Machines, established by the Matters program of UB and UBMD Physicians Group. Buffalo, New York. Two studies led by an opioid treatment program run by the University at Buffalo and UBMD Emergency Medicine have found that harm reduction vending machines installed across New York State are well utilized and provide critical life-saving services to high-risk individuals who might not otherwise have access. The studies, published late last year, evaluate the performance of the 15 harm reduction vending machines installed throughout New York State by the Matters Network, based at UBMD Emergency Medicine and UB. Matters, Medication for Addiction Treatment and Electronic Referrals, now operates 30 harm reduction vending machines in New York State and will be rolling out similar machines in New Jersey this year. Available 24 hours a day, no questions asked. These studies underscore that the harm reduction vending machines that we operate throughout the state of New York and which are available to the public 24 hours a day, no questions asked, are an effective use of resources in mitigating opioid use disorder, says Joshua J. Lynch, D.O., Clinical Professor of Emergency and Addiction Medicine and Family Medicine in the Jacobs School of Medicine and Biomedical Sciences at UB, and founder of the Matters Network. The paper, titled Evaluating Community-Based Harm Reduction Vending Machine Utilization in New York State, in the Journal of Addiction Medicine, reports that over a 14-month period, 15 harm reduction vending machines in the state dispensed more than 13,655 supplies, including an average each month of 529 naloxone kits, 245 fentanyl test strip packages, and 169 xylazine test strip packages. Nearly half of all items were dispensed outside of regular business hours, which Lynch says underscores the importance of having these machines accessible 24 hours a day. While European nations have made harm reduction vending machines widely available for decades, they are a relatively recent phenomenon in the United States. In another study, Implementing Harm Reduction Vending Machines to Reduce Opioid Overdose Risk, Description of a Centralized Implementation Model, Pros, Cons, and Lessons Learned, which was published in the Journal of Public Health Management and Practice, the UB researchers describe how, in 2022, Matters first began to make harm reduction supplies, such as overdose drugs and drug test strips, available for free by mail to anyone in New York State. From mail order to vending machines. But there are situations where mail-based distribution may not be desired, Lynch says, adding that high-risk individuals are also likely to want to avoid in-person interactions in a retail setting. By 2023, it became clear to Matters that harm reduction vending machines could reach many more people throughout New York State who could access supplies anonymously. And because Matters' focus was statewide, officials decided that the best approach would be to partner with local agencies that could serve as the on-the-ground experts to manage the machines with a local perspective. The paper describes how, after initiating contact with local agencies, Matters, with the support of the New York State Office of Addiction Services and Supports, OASAS, funded the machines, collaborated with the local managing organizations, and deferred to them for their knowledge of the local landscape. To reduce administrative burden, Matters also serves as a liaison between the machine manufacturer and the managing organization. Matters leads the comprehensive onboarding process and also provides opportunities for participating organizations to share experiences and lessons learned. The paper notes that while there have been limited studies of the efficacy of these machines in the United States, Some have noted that locating these machines inside buildings when they are accessible only during business hours or require registration can work to deter the very individuals that the machines were established to serve. In order to make placement as successful as possible, Matters aims to install the machines in a variety of high-traffic public areas. The data in our studies show that these machines were accessed at all hours of the day and night, Lynch says. Locating them outdoors without having to register or create an account to access supplies allows for a low-barrier approach. With feedback from partners and individuals who use the machines, Matters continues to expand and optimize its vending machine program. Lynch adds that since grant funding has made the program possible, continual evaluation is a critical piece. Asked if there is any way to know if individuals who have taken advantage of harm reduction programs are more receptive to eventually seeking treatment, Lynch says they haven't collected user-level data at this point. The balance between keeping the machines low barrier, so not collecting names or identifying data, makes this challenging, he says. There's no way to link vending machine users to patients that are eventually linked to treatment. But we are exploring ways to query those who are referred to treatment to find out if they have ever used the vending machines or other harm reduction services. Matthew Thomas, PhD, Senior Research Scientist in the Department of Family Medicine, is first author in the Journal of Addiction Medicine paper, and Bonnie M. Vest, PhD, Research Associate Professor in the department, is first author on the Journal of Public Health Practice and Management paper. Other co-authors are Brian M. Clemency, D.O., a professor and vice chair, Orion B. Painter, and Hilary Kirk, all of the Department of Emergency Medicine, Megan K. Chambers of the Department of Family Medicine, and Shelby Arena and Mia Dickinson of Matters. The work was funded by OASAS and by Matters. More information about locations can be found at the Matters website. Here's a column by Betty Jean Grant titled, "Stay the Course, Community. Hope is on the way." On this cold January morning of a new year, and with a newly elected mayor for the first time in 20 years, this writer is hopeful that a new day is in store for the city of Buffalo. Many people reading this will probably be surprised that I did not just focus on the east side of the city like I usually do. But in traveling around the city, especially on the lower west side, when I was campaigning for the legislature last year, I came across the same levels of disinvestment, neglect, and abandonment on the lower west side that residents on the east side of Main Street have been subjected to for decades. One only has to travel down the Ferry Street commercial corridors, from Bailey Avenue to Grant and West Ferry Street, to see that the poverty, blight, and the lack of a citywide intervention strategy and a unified comprehensive plan to inject badly needed resources into underserved areas on both sides of Main Street has put the few remaining businesses on life support. The businesses that made up the West Ferry Grant Street commercial corridor were healthy, successful, and thriving as late as several years ago. But with the closing of the McDonald's restaurant on West Ferry Street in 2023 and the loss of the only pharmacy in the immediate area when Rite Aid closed all of their Buffalo stores, the residents of that particular neighborhood are now experiencing what we East Siders have endured for decades. On January 1st, 2026, a new mayor of Buffalo was sworn in as our next mayor for at least the next 4 years. Mayor Sean Ryan has an extensive background in neighborhood and community improvement initiatives which have improved housing affordability and access to homeownership opportunities. His tenure as a New York State Assemblyman and later a New York State Senator in the state legislature will also allow him to hit the ground running. Buffalo needs a lot of tender, loving care if we are going to revitalize this city and improve the personal, economic, and social conditions of all its citizens. We are going to need the support and cooperation of the entire city community and the other elected leaders to help our new and capable mayor turn this city around to a state of civic and financial well-being that'll work for all that truly want this city to once again thrive. We citizens can help by forming block clubs and neighborhood youth assistance groups to help reduce crime and increase positive engagement activities. We can also improve the level of political involvement by conducting voter registration drives, voting, or even running for public office ourselves if we are not happy with those we have elected to represent us. Here's a piece by the Assigned Counsel Program, Erie County, New York. What are my rights in a Child Protective Services investigation? You have the right to know the details of the allegation made against you. You have the right to speak with an attorney before speaking with CPS. You have the right to refuse CPS entrance to your home without a court order. You have the right to keep your immigration status private. You have the right to an interpreter if one is needed. You have the right to refuse mental health or drug test evaluation without a court order. You have the right to refuse to have CPS question your children without a court order. You have the right to refuse services recommended by CPS. If Child Protective Services contacts you, call our free legal advice hotline Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. That number is 716-846-1181. Again, it's the Assigned Counsel Program of Erie County, New York. The phone number is 716-846-1181. There's an ad on this paper for the Brian K. Lewis Funeral Home. Brian K. Lewis is the president and manager, and they have 3 locations to better serve you. One at 347 Peckham Street, one at 2528 Bailey Avenue, and one at 1275 Sycamore Street. They are a full-service funeral home with cremation services, reasonable pricing, pre-need consultation, and help with all insurance. They are wheelchair accessible. The EM Tea Coffee Cup Cafe at 80 Oak Grove Street. Their hours are Tuesday through Saturday and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And they offer breakfasts, sandwiches, salads, wings, hoagies, coffees, teas, smoothies, and more. Catering is also available. And that again is the EM Tea Coffee Cup Cafe at 80 Oak Grove Street. And Dr. Bird's Caribbean Restaurant at 3104 Main Street is open Monday through Saturday from 11:30 to 9 p.m., serving patties, dinners, sandwiches, rotis, desserts, ice cream, island specials. They also have phone cards. Again, they're at Dr. Bird's is at 3104 Main Street. Phone number 837-6426. Kerry Saunders is host of Senior Moments, which airs Saturdays at 11 a.m. over WUFO 1080 a.m. and Power 96.5 FM. Senior Moments discusses topics of concern that affect seniors and baby boomers on Kerry Saunders' program. And the Jim Bell Cleaners at 1379 Jefferson Avenue is open Monday through Saturday, 8 to 6 p.m., and their phone number is 716-885-8133, and they say, ask about specials. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo Criterion on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. This is a story titled New 24/7 Mental Health Crisis Center opens in Buffalo to serve 5 counties. Buffalo, New York. Best Self Behavioral Health today announced the opening of the Best Response Intensive Crisis Stabilization Center, a first-of-its-kind 24/7 facility in Western New York, designed to support people of all ages experiencing mental health and substance use crises. Located at 430 Niagara Street in Buffalo, the center will begin accepting clients Thursday, January 22nd, and will serve residents across all 5 counties of Western New York. Best Response offers a calm, supportive environment where clients can stay for up to 23 hours and 59 minutes and receive immediate care from trained professionals. Services include counseling, medication support, and connection to follow-up care, all delivered in a welcoming, trauma-informed setting that meets people where they are during a crisis. Best Response reflects our commitment to meeting people with compassion in their most vulnerable moments, said Elizabeth Woke, CEO of Best Self Behavioral Health. This center ensures individuals and families have access to timely, appropriate care when they need it most without facing a crisis alone. The center was created to address a critical gap in the region's behavioral health system and was developed through close collaboration with regional partners. These include county mental health departments across Erie, Niagara, Chautauqua, Cattaraugus, and Allegheny counties, ECMC, Crisis Services of Western New York, the Crisis to Care Collaborative, Bryland Hospital, Value Network, local emergency responders, law enforcement partners, and the dedicated staff of Best Self Behavioral Health. People experiencing a behavioral health crisis often turn to hospital emergency departments, where long wait times and limited placement options can delay care. Best Response serves as a hospital diversion option, providing a faster, more person-centered pathway to stabilization and connection to the appropriate level of care, while helping reduce unnecessary psychiatric hospitalizations and inpatient stays. Best Response is one of only a handful of intensive crisis stabilization centers operating across New York State. Funding for the center was awarded to Best Self through a highly competitive request for proposals process, reflecting both the significant need in Western New York and Best Self's strong track record of delivering innovative, community-based behavioral health care. The development of Best Response was made possible through New York State's commitment to strengthening community-based crisis services, championed by New York State and Governor Kathy Hochul. Intensive crisis stabilization centers provide a place where people experiencing a behavioral health crisis can access high-quality treatment so they can avoid unnecessary emergency room visits and hospitalization, and successfully connect with services that can help them recover in their community, says the Office of Mental Health Commissioner Dr. Ann Sullivan. Best Self represents our ongoing efforts to expand these facilities across our state so that individuals can get specialized treatment in a welcoming and healing environment that will support their recovery journey. This center, like others funded by the state, represents Governor Hochul's continued focus on providing greater access to mental health care for all New Yorkers. Best Self is also profoundly grateful to the Patrick Lee Foundation for its leadership and generous support. As a key philanthropic partner, the Foundation's investment helped bring Best Response to life and reflects a shared commitment to expanding access to crisis care for individuals, families, and communities across Western New York. Deputy Erie County Executive Lisa Chimera emphasized the importance of strong local partnerships in expanding access to crisis care across the region. This new facility fills a critical gap in our mental and behavioral health system while helping ease pressure on inpatient care and local hospitals, Chimera said. Erie County is fortunate to have partners who are committed to person-centered crisis care, and we look forward to continued collaboration to ensure people receive the right care at the right time. For more information about the Best Response Intensive Crisis Stabilization Center, visit bestselfwny.org. The center is located at 430 Niagara Street in Buffalo and serves individuals across all 5 counties of Western New York. Kearns announces New York State DMV to temporarily suspend services in February as new modernized system launches. Erie County Clerk Michael P. Kearns announced the New York State Department of Motor Vehicles is preparing to launch the first phase of a new modernized technology system designed to improve customer service and streamline operations for both residents and DMV staff in February. To complete this major upgrade, all DMV offices, including those serving Erie County, will temporarily suspend operations over the President's Day weekend. Beginning Friday, February 13th at 12 p.m., all in-person DMV offices will close, and online and phone services will be unavailable statewide. This brief shutdown is necessary to safely install and test the new system before it goes live. DMV services, both in person and online, are expected to fully resume on Wednesday, February 18th. To ensure a smooth transition, appointments will be required for all in-person visits from February 18th through February 20th at all Erie County Auto Bureau branch offices. Mobile DMV services in Grand Island and Concord will remain suspended during this period and are expected to resume the following week. The upgraded system replaces decades-old technology with a single, secure platform that allows DMV employees to process transactions more efficiently, reducing delays and helping customers complete most transactions in one visit. The new platform will also expand online services, allowing residents to complete more DMV transactions from home on their own schedule. New York State DMV officials note that while staff have undergone extensive training, customers may experience minor delays in the days immediately following the launch and are asked for patience as everyone adjusts to the new system. Erie County residents who need to renew a driver license or non-driver ID or complete another DMV transaction before February 13th are strongly encouraged to do so ahead of time. As always, appointments are encouraged, as customers with reservations take precedence. Appointments can be made 24/7 online at erie.gov/clerk or by calling the Clerk's Outreach Center, which is open from Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and on Thursdays until 7 p.m. The phone number is 716-858-8864. Residents can also stay informed by following the Erie County Clerk on social media, X or Facebook or Instagram, for real-time updates before and after services resume, as well as the clerk's website at erie.gov/clerk. This February upgrade builds on recent improvements such as expanded online services, appointment-based office visits, and reduced wait times. A second major system upgrade is planned for 2028 as part of the DMV's long-term effort to modernize operations and improve customer experience. Erie and Niagara County clerks will team up for a February press conference to share key details ahead of the implementation, keeping the public well informed. Here's an opinion piece by Norman Franklin titled "Black Christian Genius and the Truth America Resisted." There is little question that in this second decade of the 21st century, faith has moved from the churches on the corner to the center of headline news and political identity. By 2025, religious identity reached a fever pitch. What was once personal conviction became weaponized religion and performative politics. Faith bent toward power rather than truth. The marriage between Christianity and politics has fused the nation and religion into what is now widely recognized as Christian nationalism. This condition did not evolve in a vacuum. Black theologians have warned of this malignancy for centuries. They spoke prophetically. White America, with self-appointed normative authority, dismissed their witness. Could this morass of harsh Christian governance, underpinned by errant theology, have been avoided? Is the African American theological voice not credible? February is Black History Month. It is an opportune time to examine and recover Black Christian genius. The Reverend Hosea Easton, a free black man, spoke these words in 1837 when he said, "The spirit of slavery will survive in the form of racial prejudice long after the system of slavery is overturned. Our warfare ought not be against slavery alone, but against the spirit which makes color a mark of degradation." Chattel slavery thrived for another quarter century after this prophetic warning. There are two things to note about Easton's genius. One, he recognized that the oppressive system was antithetical to the God he served. Two, he named the cancer festering in the bowels of America: whiteness. Whiteness is a constructed social and theological framework that emerged in the modern Atlantic world to assign moral innocence, cultural normativity, and divine favor to European-descended identity, while marking non-European peoples as deficient, dangerous, or expendable. Whiteness is not an individual. It's a pernicious and pervasive system that has a stranglehold on America's social, religious, and political life. Dr. Martin L. King, Jr., the martyred 20th century prophet, spoke to the white church, which was more concerned about order than justice. His nonviolent strategy seared the conscience of America, and he challenged government to make good on its promise of equality, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all its citizens. In his letter from the Birmingham jail, King challenged the theological posturing of progressive white churches. King said, "I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. There was a paternalism problem. 'We are with you, brother,' was their spin on his civil activism, but be patient. Now is not the best time." There are a plethora of other black intellectuals and theologians who warned America of its misguided social policies, religious exclusions, and politics for the privileged. I'll name a few. Frederick Douglass, abolitionist, orator, and preacher. Langston Hughes, poet and social advocate. James Baldwin, author, essayist, and social critic. Reverend Gardner C. Taylor, renowned pastor and theologian. Reverend Howard Thurman, author of Jesus and the Disinherited, and James Cone, father of black theology. All black intellectuals, black theologians, black genius, dismissed by the normative culture, social, academic, religious, and political. They each use their voices and their platforms to warn America of the dichotomy between the Jesus of America and the Jesus of the Bible. In Jesus in Texas, Hughes portrays Jesus as a brown-skinned immigrant who shows up in a Texas town. His difference in person, color, and identity challenges the social order. He is jailed. The irony is that black and brown-skinned Imago Dei are devalued, demonized, seized, jailed, and deported in today's American cities. James Baldwin didn't reject Jesus. He rejected white Christianity because it lied about love, about innocence, and about the conflation of religion and power. James Cone, viewed by normative theological spaces as controversial and radical, likened the lynching tree to the cross. For Cone, the crucifixion only makes sense when read through the lens of the oppressed. Cone would say that if Christ appears among the undocumented, detention is not a failure of Christianity. It is Christianity as practiced by empire. He closes with a quote by Frederick Douglass that reads, "Between the Christianity of this land and the Christianity of Christ, I recognize the widest possible difference, so wide that to perceive the one as good, pure, and holy is of necessity to reject the other as bad, corrupt, and wicked." You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo Criterion on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. This is an editorial piece by Sue Sims titled "Consumer Be Aware." As a nation, we are living in a time of tremendous change and uncertainty. The fight for truth, justice, and our democracy is underway. We are challenged daily with what and how we see, and therefore hear and experience. Caring for our health, mentally, physically, and spiritually, is of utmost importance. We need to fuel our bodies with foods that will give us strength for this journey. For years, nutritionists have been advocating a plant-forward diet, focused on incorporating more beans and legumes, along with lean proteins such as chicken, turkey, and pork, with fruits and vegetables, whole grains, and low-fat dairy products to round out our diets. Ultra-processed foods such as chips, sweets, snacks, sugary sodas, and prepackaged and frozen meals to be consumed in moderation. It was recommended to limit intake of salt and include healthy fats such as olive or vegetable oils. The risk of heart disease, diabetes, kidney disease, high blood pressure, and stroke is prevalent in our community. As healthcare and food costs continue to rise, we need to focus on maintaining and improving our own health, as well as the health of our children and grandchildren. On January 8, 2026, the Health and Human Services Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy, announced the new USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, 2025 to 2030 dietary guidelines. At the top of the new inverted pyramid is the focus on more animal protein, red meat, and full-fat dairy, whole milk. As I mentioned, previous food pyramids have emphasized a more plant-forward approach to diet and less red meat and full-fat dairy. Adding more red meat and full-fat dairy products can contribute to increases in the diseases we're prone to develop. Also, minimizing the importance of whole grains at the bottom is notable, which provide good sources of fiber, essential to the diet. The new chart continues to advocate less sugar and ultra-processed foods. Also, it is important to be aware that these new guidelines are part of the government's efforts to overhaul federal nutrition policy, which includes food served in hospitals, prisons, military bases, school lunch programs, as well as federal assistance programs. This pyramid will also provide a boost to the beef and dairy industries. Food plays a significant role in politics and history, as well as our health. What we eat is important for our future, and it is our responsibility as consumers to stay aware and vigilant. As I am writing this to you, I am looking in the mirror too. More to follow. Veterinarian pleads guilty for concealing identity of missing dog. Erie County District Attorney Michael J. Keene announces that Kimberly A. Parkhill Brown, age 46, of City of Tonawanda, pleaded guilty yesterday afternoon before Tonawanda City Court Judge Dean Lilac to one count of falsifying business records in the second degree, Class A misdemeanor, and one count of companion animal stealing, unclassified misdemeanor under New York State Agriculture and Markets Law. On or about Wednesday, July 17, 2024, the victim's Yorkshire Terrier, Benji, went missing from her residence in Niagara County. Later the same day, the victim received a phone call from a veterinarian's office in the city of Tonawanda, informing her that Benji had been found by another individual who brought the dog into their office to be scanned for a microchip. The victim received a second call, notifying her that Benji was no longer at the office after being discharged to the individuals who brought him in. The defendant, while working as a veterinarian, knowingly made false entries into the office's business records. On July 17, 2024, the defendant made a false entry in the patient log with the intent to defraud by intentionally changing the reason for the visit from dog found in the woods to itchy skin. The defendant altered the sex of the dog in the patient log from male to female spayed. On Thursday, August 8, 2024, the defendant, while working as a veterinarian, falsified business records with the intent to defraud or aid in the concealment of a crime by changing the office's patient log entry by altering the name of the dog. The same day, the defendant unlawfully removed the dog's microchip, registered to the dog's lawful owner, and replaced it with another microchip. The dog was later returned to the victim. Parkhill Brown faces a maximum of 364 days in jail when she is sentenced on Tuesday, March 17, 2025, at 1:30 p.m. She remains released on her own recognizance. Defendant to serve prison sentence for attempting to kidnap student. Erie County District Attorney Michael J. Keene announces that Shane K. Cronin, age 31, of Lombard, Illinois, was sentenced this morning before Erie County Court Judge James Barnesi to 5 years in prison, followed by 5 years of post-release supervision. On Tuesday, February 11, 2025, at approximately 12:35 p.m., police responded to a report of an assault by an intruder inside of a school near Martin Luther King Jr. Park in the city of Buffalo. The defendant unlawfully entered the school with the intent to commit a crime. The defendant, who did not have permission to be inside the school, approached 2 juvenile students in the hallway. During the encounter, the defendant attempted to lure and abduct one of the students. A school employee who saw the defendant in the hallway with the students directed him to leave. After he was confronted, the defendant attempted to cause physical injuries to the school employee by punching her in the face and shoving her to the ground. The defendant ran out of the building after a school security guard intervened. He was taken into custody nearby a short time after the incident. Cronin was not offered a reduced plea by this office. In November of 2025, he pleaded guilty to all 5 counts of the indictment. 1 count of attempted kidnapping in the second degree, which is a Class C violent felony, 1 count of burglary in the third degree, Class D felony, 1 count of attempted luring a child, Class E felony, 1 count of attempted assault in the second degree, Class E felony, 1 count of endangering the welfare of a child, Class A misdemeanor. Today, final orders of protection were issued on behalf of the victims, which remain in effect until 2038. D.A. Keene commends Lieutenant Sergeant Jason Schnell of the Buffalo Police Department for his work in this investigation, as well as ECDA victim advocate Nicole Haffa. I am committed to protecting the safety of children in our community. As District Attorney, I assure the residents of Erie County that any crime committed on school grounds will be thoroughly investigated by this office. I understand that this case raised many questions and concerns. My office immediately took action following the arrest of this defendant, which resulted in an indictment by the grand jury following a 3-month investigation. This defendant was not offered a reduced plea, and I am pleased to announce that he will serve a term of incarceration for this crime. My office remains steadfast in our commitment to investigate any allegations of crimes involving children, and we will continue to aggressively pursue justice for our most vulnerable victims, said Erie County District Attorney Mike Keene. The case was prosecuted by Assistant District Attorney Stephen C. Pipaya of the Special Victims Unit and Chief Danielle N. Diabate of the Federal Felony Trials Bureau. Redding's new book on race and AI reaches #1 on Amazon in first week. New York. Only 4 days after its Monday morning release on Monday, January 5th, Rob Redding's Black Power in the Age of Artificial Supremacy hit #1 on Amazon's Machine Theory bestseller list. The book climbed steadily all week and has drawn global attention for its bold examination of race, technology, and power. Redding, known for his outspoken commentary and long-standing work in independent black media, argues that artificial intelligence is far from neutral. He describes it as a new arena where old hierarchies are being rebuilt through code, data, and design. His book calls for a radical rethinking of who controls emerging technologies and who ultimately benefits from them. This book is a call to arms, Redding says. We must reclaim control over the narrative and the technology that shapes our future. AI can either serve the oppressor or be used as a weapon of liberation. The book blends historical analysis, cultural critique, and political theory to examine how racial bias becomes embedded in algorithms and automated systems. A central chapter, co-written with Redding's husband, Redding Shim Kwet Young, explores the cultural and linguistic roots of bias in technology. Redding Shim draws parallels between slurs used against robots in science fiction and the racist language historically used to dehumanize black people. In our chapter, we explore how the language used to demean robots, like clanker, mirrors the racist slurs that dehumanize black people, Redding Shim said. This chapter is about how we rehearse and normalize systemic racism through substitution, phonetics, and cultural history. The book also introduces new concepts, such as robotology and robotism, frameworks Redding uses to argue for black agency in the digital age. He situates these ideas within a broader scholarly conversation, engaging thinksters such as Nick Bostrom, Stuart Russell, Safiya Noble, Ruya Benjamin, and Franz Fanon. The book cover features his own painting, Black Power, Unapologetically Militant, a work that sold for $10,000. His award-winning talk show, Redding News Review Unrestricted, can be found on his venerable website, reddingnewsreview.com. The Enduring Tragedy of McJosh Allen by Gregory Brown. Bills Nation has been down this road before. However, it still doesn't ease the pain of another heartbreaking playoff exit, this time to the one-seeded Denver Broncos, 33-30. I was already on record as saying that the Bills would not get far in the playoffs. so just making it to the divisional round and narrowly losing in an overtime thriller should have at least made me somewhat happy. Wrong. This loss hurts just as bad as it did the last 7 times around. And even when we're not solemnly sworn to allow ourselves to become so caught up, to remain aloof and emotionally detached, so many, like me, still wind up drinking the Kool-Aid. And immediately thereafter, we become true believers, thinking that this time around it'll all be different. But in the grand scheme of things, this game played out just like all the others. Another playoff loss in a never-ending sequel that probably won't ever change until our unhappy Berg can somehow manage to reverse our enduring Buffalo curse. This game was deja vu all over again. In some ways, these constant playoff losses are a continuing tragedy with an almost Shakespearean quality to them. Indeed, if the long-departed Bill Shakespeare had been a football fan, he would have undoubtedly told the wretched story of our Buffalo Bills and their heroic but star-crossed quarterback, Josh Allen. Shakespeare wrote in the genres of both comedy and tragedy. Comedies had happy endings, tragedies have sad endings. This Shakespeare play, which he would have aptly titled McJosh, would have been a nail-biting drama about a broke, downtrodden village, and McJosh, its star-crossed quarterback. The village, in an age of post-industrial decline, pinned all of its hopes for revival on McJosh, who was the greatest quarterback in all the land. The problem is that as great as he was, McJosh has always waged a never-ending internal battle against himself. It has been a struggle between good and evil, but more specifically between good McJosh versus his evil twin, bad McJosh. Most of the time, good McJosh prevails, but every now and then, bad McJosh breaks free of his chains only to destroy all that good McJosh has rendered. And so it was that this intense personal struggle took center stage in the mile-high kingdom of Empower Field. At first, good McJosh seemed relentless in his determination to lead his poor Rust Belt village onward to relevance and prosperity. That is, until he wasn't. McJosh's first fatal error came when he fumbled the village's sacred rock on a meaningless play, wherein he had but to take a knee and simply allow time to run out on the first half clock. Instead, he fumbled away the precious stone with a mere 2 seconds left on the clock, which gave the kingdom a freebie that would lead to a field goal and the ultimate 3-point margin of victory by which the village lost. After that fiasco, and emboldened by his success, Bad McJosh unveiled even more evil machinations, another fumble and 2 costly interceptions of the sacred rock. Of course, one of the turnovers was helped by a group of striped animals called zebras, lurking in the nearby woods. Ultimately, it was these ogres whose thumb on the scale tipped the balance between victory and defeat. But still, as if to right the cosmic wrong, the football gods had given good McJosh several last opportunities to right the mischief caused by bad McJosh. First were a couple of underthrown passes to his wide receivers, Khalil Shakir and McCall Hardman, that would have seized vital territory from the kingdom and allowed the village to continue in its inexorable march forward. But even after those critical errors, McJosh misfired again with an overthrown missile to tight end Dawson Knox that would have scored a touchdown and thus sealed the kingdom's doom. But in the end, not only did bad McJosh cause the downtrodden village to mourn what should have been an historic victory, it also led to the unfortunate overthrow of Sean McDermott, the now deposed king of the village. Damn you, William Shakespeare. You have been listening to a reading of articles and features from the January 30th issue of the Buffalo Criterion. We read from the Buffalo Criterion every Friday at 7 p.m. Your reader has been Jim Michaely. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service with the New York Times. Following that, 9 is Buffalo Spree. And at 10 o'clock is episode number 9 is Proving Ground by Michael Connolly. It's episode number 9 of that. Stay with us. Radio Reading mails out a large print program schedule to our listeners every other month. If you have not received a Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service large print program schedule in the mail, please call us at 716-821-5555. We will make sure that you receive one every other month. A Braille version of the schedule is also available upon request. Our number again is 716-821-5555. 5555.
Hello,